The soft hum of the cargo ship's engines filled the cabin as Jack Thompson stared out into the vast emptiness of space. His small transport vessel, the Star Runner, cruised steadily through Sector 47, a rarely used shipping lane that cut through what most pilots called the dead zone. He preferred this route. Fewer ships meant fewer problems. "Another boring run," Jack muttered, running his hand through his graying hair. At 45, he had spent more than half his life hauling cargo through the stars. The quiet suited him just fine. The ship's eye, which he simply called computer, suddenly broke the silence. "Warning. Unknown signal detected. Bearing mark 227. Jack straightened in his chair, his experienced hands already moving across the control panel. "Source. Signal appears to be of distress beacon. Non-standard frequency. Non-human origin." That got his attention. Non-human meant alien, and alien meant trouble. The shipping company's regulations were crystal clear. No contact with unknown alien vessels. The penalties for breaking this rule could cost him his license. "Display signal strength," Jack commanded, his eyes narrowing at the readings that appeared on the screen. "Signal is weak and degrading. Estimated time until complete signal loss. 3 hours. Jack drummed his fingers on the armrest of his pilot's chair. The smart move would be to log it and move on. Let the authorities handle it. But something about the fading signal tugged at him. Someone could be dying out there. "Computer, calculate deviation time if we investigate." Course deviation would add approximately 40 minutes to total journey time. Fuel consumption within acceptable parameters. Jack leaned back, closing his eyes. The company would dock his pay for being late, but he hadn't survived 25 years in deep space by ignoring his instincts. "Plot an intercept course," he ordered. The ship's engines hummed louder as they changed direction. 20 minutes later, the Star Runner's floodlights illuminated a sight that made Jack's breath catch. The alien vessel hung motionless against the star-filled backdrop, its design unlike anything he had seen before. The ship was elegant, with sweeping curves that reminded him of a whale, but its hull showed no signs of damage. "Life signs?" Jack asked, already suiting up in his maintenance suit. "One extremely weak life sign detected, located in the central chamber. Warning. Boarding unknown vessels violates company policy section 47B. Note in the log that I'm investigating a potential emergency situation," Jack replied, checking his suit's oxygen levels. "Keep the engines hot. If anything looks wrong, we bail." The airlock cycled, and Jack pushed off toward the alien ship. His magnetic boots clanked against its hull as he approached what appeared to be an entry port. To his surprise, it was unlocked. The interior lights still functioned, casting an eerie blue glow through the corridors. Jack moved cautiously, his helmet lights sweeping from side to side. The ship wasn't damaged, it was abandoned. Personal items were scattered everywhere, as if the crew had left in a hurry. "Computer, guide me to that life sign," he whispered. Following the eye's directions, Jack made his way deeper into the vessel. The central chamber turned out to be some sort of medical bay. Rows of suspended animation pods lined the walls, all empty except one. Through the frosted glass of the last pod, Jack could make out a small figure. The pod's control panel blinked red, indicating a critical power failure. 10 minutes of power remained, at most. "Computer, analyze the pod's occupant. Scan indicates juvenile female of unknown species. Current physical state consistent with suspended animation. Pod power failing. Revival necessary within 8 minutes to prevent brain death." Jack stared at the pod, his heart pounding. The right thing to do was call it in and wait for proper authorities. That was the safe choice, the legal choice. But as he looked at the small figure in the pod, he knew he couldn't wait. Someone had left this child here to die, and he was damned if he was going to let that happen. "Computer," he said, his fingers already working on the pod's controls. "Prepare medical bay for emergency recovery. We're about to have a guest." Jack's hands moved quickly over the pod's control panel. Years of working with different cargo containers had taught him that most systems followed similar patterns. He just hoped alien technology wasn't too different. "Computer, translate these symbols," he said, his voice tense. "Working. Basic controls identified. Red sequence initiates emergency revival. Warning. Pod power at critical levels." Sweat formed on Jack's forehead inside his helmet as he pressed the sequence of red symbols. The pod hummed to life, then made a concerning grinding sound. "Pod's backup power depleted. Emergency transfer required," computer announced. "How long does she have?" Jack asked, already unclipping the emergency power pack from his suit. 3 minutes until cellular damage begins." Jack connected his suit's power pack to the pod. It wasn't meant for this, but it would have to work. The pod's lights flickered, then stabilized. A new sequence of symbols appeared on the screen. "Revival sequence initiated. Computer translated. Recommend immediate transfer to ship's medical bay." The pod's glass cover slowly lifted, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. Jack got his first clear look at the alien girl. She was small, perhaps the size of a human 10-year-old. Her skin had a pale blue tint, and delicate patterns swirled across her face. 2 small antennae curved back from her forehead. "Life signs dropping," computer warned. "Temperature critical." Jack didn't hesitate. He carefully lifted the girl from the pod. She was lighter than he expected, even in the low gravity. Her body felt cold through his suit's gloves. "Plotting fastest route back to ship," computer said, highlighting a path on Jack's helmet display. Jack moved as quickly as he dared through the abandoned vessel's corridors. The girl remained completely still in his arms, her chest barely moving. When he reached the airlock, he faced his first major challenge. "Computer, how do I transport her through space without a suit?" "Emergency pressure seal in your suit's storage compartment. Warning. Seal designed for mechanical components, not living beings. Success rate unknown." Jack pulled out the transparent emergency seal. It was meant for carrying damaged ship parts through space, but it would have to do. He carefully wrapped it around the girl, making sure her face was clear and the seal was tight. "Beginning airlock sequence," he announced. The next 30 seconds were the longest of Jack's life. He held the girl close as they moved through space back to his ship. The emergency seal held, but he could see her breathing becoming more shallow. Finally, they reached the Star Runner's airlock. As soon as they were inside, Jack rushed to the medical bay. "Prepare emergency revival protocols," he ordered, placing the girl on the medical bed. The ship's systems came to life, scanning the alien child. Unknown physiology detected. Basic life support possible. Attempting to maintain core temperature and oxygen levels. Jack removed his helmet, watching as the medical systems worked. Slowly, color seemed to return to the girl's face. Her breathing became more regular. Then her eyes opened. They were unlike any eyes Jack had seen. Deep purple with silver flecks that seemed to shimmer. She looked at him without fear, only curiosity. "Hey there," Jack said softly, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. "You're safe now." The girl spoke, her voice musical but using words he couldn't understand. "Language unknown," computer reported, attempting to analyze basic patterns. The girl tried to sit up, but Jack gently kept her lying down. She didn't resist, but pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Eri. "Eri, is that your name?" Jack asked, pointing to her. She nodded. Apparently some gestures were universal. Then she looked around the medical bay, and her expression changed to one of confusion and concern. "She's asking about her people," computer translated, beginning to understand some of her language patterns. Jack's face darkened. How could he explain that her own people had left her to die? That she was found abandoned in a failing pod? Eri must have seen something in his expression. A single tear rolled down her cheek, leaving a slight shimmer on her blue skin. "You're not alone anymore," Jack said firmly, taking her small hand in his. "I promise." Over the next few hours, Jack watched as Eri grew stronger. The medical bed's readings showed her vital signs improving, though they were quite different from human norms. The girl hadn't let go of his hand since waking, as if afraid he might disappear. "Computer, how's the translation coming?" Jack asked, watching Eri examine the medical equipment with curious eyes. "Basic communication now possible. Warning: some concepts may not translate accurately." Eri looked up at the sound of the computer's voice and spoke. Her musical language filled the small medical bay. "She wishes to understand why she was in the cold sleep." Computer translated. Jack took a deep breath. He needed to be careful with his words. "Can you show us the logs from her ship?" he asked. The computer displayed the alien text it had downloaded. Eri's eyes widened as she read, her antennae drooping slowly. More tears appeared, but she wiped them away quickly. Ship logs indicate subject Eri was placed in suspended animation due to genetic anomaly. Computer translated. Her species terms it the Shining Curse, a rare mutation that appears in 1 in a million births. Jack frowned. What kind of mutation? Before Computer could answer, Eri's skin began to glow softly. The patterns on her face lit up with a gentle blue light, spreading down her arms in beautiful swirling designs. The medical bay's lights flickered in response. "Fascinating," Computer said. "She appears to generate and control electromagnetic fields naturally. This ability frightened her people." Jack watched in amazement as Eri made small arcs of energy dance between her fingers. She wasn't showing off. Her expression was sad, almost ashamed. "They feared what they didn't understand," Jack said softly. "So they tried to get rid of you." Eri nodded, the glow fading. She spoke again, her voice trembling. "She says her family agreed with the council's decision." Computer translated. "They believed she would bring shame to their bloodline. The law demanded she be removed to maintain genetic purity." Jack felt anger building in his chest. How could anyone abandon their child like this? He squeezed Eri's hand gently, and she looked up at him. "Computer, translate this exactly," he said. "Eri, where I come from, Earth, we believe every life has value. What makes you different isn't a curse. It's what makes you special." As Computer translated, Eri's antennae perked up slightly. She spoke again, this time with more energy. "She asks if humans have powers like hers." Computer translated. Jack chuckled. "No, we don't. But we don't fear those who are different. We learn from them." Suddenly, the ship's alarm system activated. "Warning: long-range sensors detect 3 vessels entering the sector. Design matches Eri's ship." The girl's face went pale, her glow completely vanishing. She gripped Jack's hand tighter and spoke rapidly. "She says they are purifiers." Computer translated. "They track down and eliminate genetic anomalies to protect their species' purity. They must have detected the pod's revival sequence." Jack stood up, his jaw set firmly. "Well, they're not getting you," he said. "Computer, power up the engines. Plot a course for the Callisto trading post. Alert: changing course with passenger aboard violates multiple regulations. Override. Authorization Thompson 7 Alpha," Jack said firmly. "And register Eri as a refugee seeking asylum. That should keep things legal." He turned to Eri, who was watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. "Computer, translate. Those ships out there, they'll have to go through me to get to you. And humans, we're very, very good at protecting our family." As Computer translated, Eri's face broke into a smile. Her skin began to glow again. But this time, the patterns were bright and steady. She stood up from the medical bed, wobbling slightly, and wrapped her arms around Jack's waist in a tight hug. The ship's engines hummed to life as Jack hugged her back. He knew he was probably going to lose his job over this, but looking down at the alien child who trusted him with her life, he couldn't bring himself to care. "Computer," he said, "let's show them how fast this old cargo ship can really go." The Star Runner's engines roared as Jack pushed them beyond their usual limits. Behind them, the 3 purifier ships closed in, their sleek forms cutting through space like silver arrows. Their ships are faster, computer reported. Intercept in 17 minutes at current speed. Jack looked at Eri, who sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the pursuing vessels. Her skin had taken on a pale, almost white glow of fear. Computer, what's between us and the Callisto trading post? Jack asked, his mind racing through possibilities. The Fuller asteroid belt lies ahead. Warning: navigating through asteroids at high speed is not recommended. A slight smile crossed Jack's weathered face. Perfect. That's exactly what we need. Eri spoke quickly, her antennae twitching in alarm as computer translated. She says their ships are designed for pursuit in open space. They will not risk damage by following us through asteroids. Then they don't know much about human pilots, Jack replied, adjusting their course. Computer, transfer all power from weapons to shields and engines. The asteroid belt loomed ahead of them, a chaotic mass of spinning rocks ranging from the size of cars to small moons. Most pilots took the long way around. Jack aimed straight for it. Purifier ships are transmitting a message, computer announced. Let's hear it, Jack said, his hand steady on the controls. A harsh voice filled the cabin, speaking in Eri's language. The girl shrank in her seat as computer translated. They demand we surrender the genetic anomaly or be destroyed with her. Jack snorted. Computer, send this response. Come and get her. They hit the asteroid belt at full speed. Jack's years of experience threading cargo through tight spaces came into play as he wove between the massive rocks. The Star Runner shuddered as smaller asteroids bounced off their reinforced shields. 2 purifier ships still in pursuit, computer reported. One has fallen back. Jack grinned. Not so eager when things get difficult, are they? Suddenly, Eri's hands began to glow brightly. She pointed at the navigation screen, speaking rapidly. She says she can sense the electromagnetic fields of the asteroids. Computer translated. The patterns of their movement. Can you help us navigate? Jack asked, watching as energy crackled around her antennae. Eri nodded. Her eyes began to glow with the same purple light as the patterns on her skin. She raised her hands, and the navigation display changed, showing paths Jack's instruments hadn't detected. Remarkable, computer said. She's mapping the gravitational flows between asteroids. This is far more accurate than standard sensors. Jack didn't waste time being amazed. He followed Eri's guidance, threading the Star Runner through gaps that seemed impossibly small. Behind them, one of the pursuing ships clipped an asteroid and spun away, its engines flickering. 1 purifier ship remaining, computer announced. But they're still gaining. Jack saw a cluster of massive asteroids ahead, spinning around each other in a deadly dance. Most pilots would never go near such a formation. Eri pointed at a spot between the spinning rocks, her voice urgent. She says there's a safe passage, but it will only be open for 2.3 seconds. Computer translated. Time to intercept, Jack asked. Purifier ship will reach us in 50 seconds. Jack took a deep breath. Eri, I'm trusting you. Guide us in. The girl's glow intensified. Her hands moved like she was conducting an orchestra, tracking the movement of the asteroids. Jack followed her directions, pushing the Star Runner's engines to their limit. They shot toward what looked like solid rock. Jack's instincts screamed at him to pull up, but he kept their course steady. At the last second, the asteroid shifted, revealing a gap barely wider than their ship. The Star Runner screamed through the opening just as it began to close. Behind them, they heard the distant rumble of an explosion. Purifier ship attempted to follow, computer reported. They did not time it correctly. Their vessel has been destroyed. Eri's glow faded, and she slumped in her chair, exhausted but smiling. Jack reached over and squeezed her shoulder. That's what they get for underestimating us, he said. Both of us. The Star Runner emerged from the asteroid belt, its hull scratched but intact. Ahead lay open space and the safety of the trading post. Behind them, The wreckage of the purifier ships served as a testament to what happened when the hunters became the hunted. 3 days after their escape through the asteroid belt, the Star Runner cruised at a more relaxed pace. Jack had decided to take a longer route to the Callisto trading post, giving them time to recover and letting any remaining pursuit fall behind. He found Eri in the cargo hold, sitting cross-legged between the shipping containers. Her hands moved gracefully through the air as small arcs of energy danced between her fingers. She wasn't afraid to use her abilities anymore. Getting better at controlling it? Jack asked, sitting down beside her. Eri nodded enthusiastically. Much better, she said through computer's translation system, which now worked smoothly after learning more of her language. The fear made it harder before. Now it feels natural. Jack watched as she created complex patterns of light in the air. On Earth, we have a saying, "What makes you different makes you special." Eri absorbed this, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. My people say difference brings chaos. They believe perfect order comes from perfect sameness. Her patterns flickered sadly. They tried to fix me when I was younger. It only made the light stronger. You can't fix what isn't broken, Jack said firmly. Computer, show her the files about human genetic variation. The cargo hold's display screen lit up with images of humans from around Earth. Different heights, colors, features, and abilities. Eri watched with growing amazement. So much variation, she whispered. And they all live together. Not always perfectly, Jack admitted. But we learned that our differences make us stronger as a species. Each unique trait might be exactly what we need to survive something new. Eri stood up, her confidence growing. Watch this, she said. The lights in the cargo hold dimmed as she concentrated. The patterns on her skin began to pulse, and suddenly all the electronic devices in the room activated at once. Cargo manifests appeared on screens, lights danced in sequence, and even the small cleaning robot whirred to life. Impressive, Jack said, genuinely amazed. You're not just generating energy, you're controlling it. I can feel the patterns of energy, Eri explained, letting everything return to normal. Like music, but with light and power instead of sound. She paused, looking down. My family said it was dangerous, that I would hurt someone. Jack shook his head. They were wrong. You just saved both our lives in that asteroid field, remember? Your ability let you see paths no normal sensors could detect. A small alarm beeped from the ship's system. Meal preparation complete, computer announced. Come on, Jack said, standing up. I want to show you something else humans are good at. Cooking. In the small kitchen area, Jack had prepared 2 bowls of his favorite space travel meal. Synthesized chicken soup. He'd checked with computer to make sure it was safe for Eri's biology. Eri sniffed the soup curiously, her antennae moving forward to sense it better. Her first taste made her eyes widen. This has so many different flavors, she exclaimed. Our food is nutrition balanced to be exactly the same every time. Jack laughed. That sounds terrible. Humans like variety in everything. Food, music, art, people. Life would be boring otherwise. As they ate, Eri grew quiet, thinking. Finally, she spoke softly. What will happen when we reach the trading post? Well, Jack said, having thought about this a lot. First, we'll file for refugee status for you. Humans have laws protecting people who are persecuted for being different. He stirred his soup, and then, if you want, I'd like to apply to be your guardian. Eri's skin lit up brighter than he'd ever seen, her pattern swirling with joy. You mean, like a father? Exactly like a father, Jack said. Though I should warn you, I know nothing about raising kids, human or alien. Eri jumped up and hugged him, nearly knocking over their soup bowls. You saved my life, she said. You showed me I'm not wrong or broken. You're already being a father. Jack hugged her back, surprised by how natural it felt. The company would probably fire him for this whole incident, but looking at the happy alien girl who was somehow becoming his daughter, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes, he thought, the best families were the ones you found among the stars. The Callisto trading post appeared in their viewport, a massive space station that looked like a shining wheel spinning slowly in space. Hundreds of ships from different species docked at its many ports, making it one of the busiest neutral zones in this sector. Multiple ships approaching. Computer announced as they neared the station. 5 vessels of purifier design detected. Jack's hands tightened on the controls. They're persistent, I'll give them that. Ari stood behind his chair, her skin glowing with a mix of fear and determination. They won't stop, she said quietly. The Council believes my existence threatens their perfect order. Well, they're about to learn about human stubbornness, Jack replied. He opened a channel to the station. Callisto Control, this is Earth cargo vessel Star Runner, requesting emergency docking and immediate asylum protection. A gruff voice responded. Star Runner, this is Callisto Control. State the nature of your asylum request. We have a juvenile refugee aboard, being pursued by ships that intend her harm. She's seeking protection under the Sentient Rights Act, Section 7. There was a pause. Then, confirmed, Star Runner. Proceed to Emergency Dock 14. Station defenses are now tracking your pursuit vessels. The purifier ships formed a blockade between them and the station. A new voice cut through their communications, cold and commanding. Return the genetic anomaly, it said in perfectly translated English. This is an internal matter of our species. The station has no authority here. Jack was about to respond when Ari stepped forward. Her voice shook slightly, but she spoke clearly. I am not your property. I claim the right of sanctuary. The patterns on her skin pulsed with bright light as she accessed the ship's communication systems. Suddenly, every screen on the station and nearby ships lit up with images. Recordings from her abandoned ship showing how they had left her to die. Logs detailing their purification protocols, evidence of their crimes against their own children. By the stars, the Callisto controller breathed. They're broadcasting this to every ship in range. The purifier ships began to move forward. This violation cannot be allowed, their commander stated. If the station protects her, it will be considered an act of war. Funny thing about humans, Jack said, his voice hard. We don't respond well to threats. He opened a general broadcast channel. This is Jack Thompson of Earth. I'm carrying a child who was abandoned to die because she was born different. Anyone who believes in protecting the innocent, now would be a good time to show it. For a moment, there was silence. Then ships began to move. A massive Earth freighter pulled alongside the Star Runner. Then, a Centaurian medical vessel. A Rigelian destroyer. One by one, ships from dozens of species formed a wall between the Star Runner and the purifier vessels. This is Captain Martins of the Earth freighter Big Sky. A new voice announced. We've got your back, Star Runner. Persecution of children isn't tolerated in civilized space. The Callisto station's weapons powered up, their targeting systems locked on the purifier ships. Your vessels are now in violation of station safety protocols, the controller announced. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. Ari watched in amazement as more ships joined their defense. Her glow brightened with each new ally until the cockpit was filled with light. The purifier commander's voice had lost its certainty. This is unprecedented. The Council will not accept. The Council, Jack interrupted, has exactly 10 seconds to withdraw before they learn how many species are willing to fight to protect a child. He looked at Ari and winked. Want to count it down? Ari raised her hand, creating a glowing countdown in the space between ships. As she reached 3, the purifier vessels began to turn away. By 1, they were already jumping to faster than light speed. Cheers erupted across all channels as the ships dispersed. The station controller's voice returned. Star Runner, you're cleared for docking. We'll have a Rights Council representative waiting to process your asylum claim. He paused, then added more softly, and thank you. It's good to be reminded that some things are worth standing together for. Jack reached back and squeezed Aries' hand as they approached their docking bay. "See, I told you humans don't like bullies." Aries' antennae curled happily as she watched the other ships return to their business. "No," she said, "humans just like doing what's right." 6 months after the standoff at Callisto Station, the Star Runner drifted through a quiet sector of space. In the cockpit, Jack watched as Aries confidently worked the navigation controls. Her skin glowed softly, helping her sense the energy patterns of nearby stars. "Course plotted for the Rigel colony," she announced proudly. The translator was barely needed now. She'd learned English remarkably fast. Cargo secured and engines running at optimal efficiency. "Not bad for your first solo plot," Jack said, checking her work. "You're getting better at this than your old man." Aries beamed at the words "old man." The adoption papers had been finalized 3 months ago, making her officially the first of her species to become part of a human family. Her case had changed a lot of things in space law. "Message incoming from Earth Central," computer announced. "Priority marking." "Put it through," Jack said, sitting straighter. These messages usually meant trouble. The screen lit up with an official document. As Jack read it, his serious expression broke into a smile. "What is it?" Aries asked, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "Remember those broadcasts you made at Callisto, showing how your people treated children who were different?" Jack turned the screen so she could see. The Galactic Council just passed the Aries Protocol. New laws protecting genetic minorities across all species. "You started something big, kiddo." Aries' pattern swirled with emotion. "Does this mean others like me won't be abandoned?" "Not anymore. And there's more." Jack scrolled down. "Your people's council has been forced to change their laws. They're allowing those with genetic variations to live freely. Some are even celebrating these differences now. All because one human wouldn't leave a child to die," computer added, having developed quite a personality after months of translating for Aries. Jack shrugged. "I just did what any decent person would do. You did the hard part, facing your fears and standing up to them." A small alert blinked on their navigation screen. Aries focused on it, her antennae moving forward. "There's a ship ahead," she said. "Similar design to." Her voice trailed off. Jack saw it too. A ship of her people, but not a purifier vessel. This one was smaller, marked as a civilian transport. "They're hailing us," computer reported. Aries looked at Jack, who nodded encouragingly. "Accept the call," she said. A face appeared on their screen, another of Aries' species, but this one had patterns similar to hers. As they watched, the alien's skin began to glow softly. "I am Lynn," the alien said through the translator. I saw the broadcasts. I've been looking for others like me since the laws changed." Lynn's patterns flickered nervously. "When I heard a human cargo ship had an energy-gifted crew member." Aries' own patterns pulsed with excitement. "You can manipulate energy too." Lynn nodded. "There are more of us. We're forming a community on the outer colonies. Some humans are helping us study our abilities, understand them better." Lynn paused. Would you like to meet others like you?" Aries turned to Jack, her expression torn between excitement and worry. He smiled warmly. "The Rigel colony can wait," he said. "Family comes first, even newly discovered family." Aries hugged him tightly, her joy making her glow light up the entire cockpit. She turned back to the screen. "We'd love to visit, my father and I both." As they adjusted their course to follow Lynn's ship, Jack watched Aries practically bouncing with excitement as she talked with someone who shared her gift. She had grown so much from the frightened girl he'd found in that pod. "Computer," he said quietly, "record personal log. Sometimes the best things in life come from breaking all the rules. And sometimes the greatest adventures start with a simple choice to do what's right, even if it costs you your job." Computer asked, reminding him of his early fears. Jack looked at his daughter, her patterns glowing with happiness as she learned about others like her. "Some things are worth more than a job," he said. "Some things are priceless." The Star Runner turned toward the outer colonies, carrying its small but perfect family toward whatever new adventures awaited them among the stars.